Good afternoon. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mokshaka. I know some of you and some of you not yet. So what we're going to do with this session is be a little bit playful with practice, really. So I'd very much encourage us to not meditate, as it were. So we're not meditating. And I'd invite you as well to keep your eyes open when you do this exercise. So any posture, really, any comfortable posture. And I take it quite literally, a bit like Lucy and Dorothy are doing, of sitting in an armchair. I mean, it's quite lovely to just sit back in an armchair and let the armchair support your weight. I think sometimes what can happen if we sit in a formal meditation posture, and I experiment with this myself, is that I can get quite tense just through the physical act of sitting in a meditation posture, and also perhaps keeping your eyes open, because again, from my own experience, sometimes I close my eyes and it's almost like ready, steady, go. The habits of years of mistaken meditation practice can kind of kick in almost habitually, and the habits that we have, I think some of them have so much momentum behind them that they can be kind of in the background. It's a bit like when you go to a pantomime as a child and you're all shouting out, "It's behind you." It's almost like we can be or practice can be driven by craving or aversion that is so ingrained that it's difficult to notice. So yeah, as comfortable a posture as possible. Sitting back in the armchair of awareness, as Vajradevi has often talked about it, quite literally. And I think it can help as well to, not that you can rid yourself of expectations, but I've found doing this practice that I've kind of had to adjust or let go of my expectations again and again and again and again, and still realizing that I'm making too much effort, or there's some expectation there in the background. So, Anarlio uses a beautiful analogy of a cowherd, that during the day he's kind of had to keep his eye on them and be quite vigilant, looking around to see what that cow's doing over there and what that cow's doing over there. They're about to go into the neighboring field. But then once the evening comes and they've eaten and they've settled and they're all just sitting in a group, he can just, or she can just sit under a tree at a distance with his feet up and eyes partly closed, and just vaguely be aware of these cows in the distance. So it's that kind of attitude that we need to bring to this practice. So it's very much, with focusing practices like the mindfulness of breathing and the metta-bhavana, sometimes they can be, we're trying to focus. With this practice, we're trying to include as much as possible. So the intention of the practice is to notice as much as possible. I know it's kind of obvious in a way, but I think we have a tendency for consciousness and attention to always go to the most intense objective experience, whether that's a visual object or an auditory object or a sensory object, we tend to hone in on whatever is most intense, or mental events, whatever is most intense, the mind will tend to go to that. And if we're not careful, our awareness can contract around that particular object. And then we can get into, I certainly noticed that with myself sometimes, my meditation would be okay, would be actually much better if I wasn't resisting what's happening. And actually resisting what's happening is what's happening in that particular meditation. So it's about always stepping back a little bit so that the resistance or the aversion or the craving is part of the meditation. Noticing it is key, not being conditional with your meditation, as in my meditation would go really well if I didn't get distracted. Well, distraction is what's happening if that's what's happening. So relaxed attitude. An effort. Again, the defilements have a huge momentum behind them. And I think it's very often, easy to associate mindfulness with fully matured or developed mindfulness. So when mindfulness has got a lot of momentum behind it and it becomes fairly continuous, it will become a lot more satisfactory, and you'll notice a lot more, and you'll have that kind of experience where you think, oh, that was a really good meditation. I noticed a lot. I felt very calm. I felt relaxed. That's actually kind of fruit of the practice. It's not the practice itself. It can become part of the practice. But in a sense, all we can really do in the practice is very simple. And I like what Utejaniya says about this is remember to be in the present moment. Continue to remember being in the present moment and view things as natural or with a sense of right view. And the defilements will be there. Just expect them to be there almost. Not to kind of want them to happen, but they will be there, and they are part of the meditation. He often uses this term of don't look down on the defilements, or they'll get you. And another thing is just noticing with this practice is very much about noticing what the mind is up to. It's always up to something. It's always seeing, feeling, thinking, imagining, visualizing, and then all of the responses that arise in response to those sensory inputs, craving, aversion. It's all part of the practice. But the mind is already doing all of this. We don't need to, the only thing we need to do, in a sense, is notice what the mind is up to and let it do its thing. So in a sense, awareness is already there. It's always there to some extent. And to make mindfulness, right mindfulness, we just need to bring in that sense of fully knowing what is present, what's happening now. Even if it's complete confusion and agitation, that's what's happening. So just noticing. And so we'll do a fairly simple exercise, again, with your eyes open, and this, try and see it not as a meditation, as it were. Imagine that you're just sitting, well, you probably are sitting at home in your living room or wherever, or bedrooms, just sitting perfectly, like you would just be sitting, having a cup of tea, yeah, fairly relaxed, comfortable posture. And just notice what sensations are telling you that you're sitting. You don't need to try, do you, to notice that you're sitting or lying or whatever. So we're not trying to add an extra element to our experience apart from noticing what is already happening. And we'll do that through preferentially paying attention to each sense field. So preferably with your eyes open. It does help to be more inclusive by keeping your eyes open rather than close them, and by default look for something a bit more. So first of all, just noticing bodily sensations, whatever they are. I mean, there's loads of them happening moment by moment. Not looking for anything in particular. Just, sensations of feet and hands and legs, clothes, skin. What does sitting feel like? Is it subtly pleasant, neutral? Notice the myriad of sensations that are not so obvious. Your eyes are open. Notice that blinking is happening without intending it to. There's the wetness of your mouth. Anything really. And just notice how much effort it requires to notice that you're sitting. Not very much at all. So again, sitting back, not leaning forward into the object of awareness, but sitting back from it. Almost like the sensations are in the corner of your awareness rather than in the center. Just how many bodily sensations can you notice? Arising one at a time or several at a time. So not scanning, just noticing whatever physical sensation presents itself next. And you don't know which one it will be. where it will be. But the mind will automatically pick them out. And you notice which sensations the mind is picking. In a sense, the awareness is following the attention. Your mind wanders, just notice that. And notice that breathing is happening. Within a broader context of many physical sensations. Not allowing your soul to focus, just noticing whatever physical sensation comes next. Just preferentially. Some very, very subtle, almost imperceptible. Some more obvious and intense. Maybe you can distinguish between sort of throbbing and tingling, cool or warm. Pleasant or unpleasant, neutral. All of this can be noticed. And then notice hearing, auditory sensations, just preferentially, still noticing everything else, but giving slight preferential noticing to sounds. Notice any reactions or responses. Some sounds are close, some far, some quiet, some loud, pleasant or unpleasant. Some almost imperceptible. Noticing that hearing is happening all by itself. Notice that the mind is moving backwards and forwards between physical sensations and auditory sensations. In a broad spectrum of experience. Just take nothing for granted. Just preferentially inclining the mind, the awareness, to sounds, hearing. Still noticing the bodily sensations, of course. Notice that you know what those sounds are. So you can notice the perception arising as well as the sound. Automatically. The slight humming of your laptop or computer. The gurgling of your stomach. No, just go back preferentially to bodily, physical sensations. Again, just preferentially inclining awareness to noticing what bodily sensations the mind is picking out or arising. Notice that tendency to want to close your eyes. And then gradually move your preferential attention to the visual field. And just notice that you automatically know what's in front of you. And that your awareness will zoom in and out of different objects. One moment you might be noticing the screen, the next moment the colour. A different pattern. Notice that the mind doesn't rest on one object, it moves around. And if something unusual was to appear on screen, the mind would automatically go to it very quickly. Noticing movements, colours, textures. Just noticing what attention is going to. As we become conscious of each object, attention will then follow, depending on its intensity. Let your gaze be soft. Now bring your awareness a little bit preferentially to the sense of taste. Taste of saliva is fairly neutral, but that can be noticed. Neutral and subtle, not demanding any attention, hardly at all. And now to the sense of smell. Again, fairly neutral. Unless it's not, and then that would be fairly obvious. Preferentially noticing again physical sensations arising in the body, on the skin. Some very neutral, very subtle. Some more immediate and intense. Spreading the awareness to take in as much as possible. And then noticing within, in between thoughts, images, impressions, as distinct from physical, auditory, and visual sensations. Not separate, but distinct. Noticing perception, recognition, selection. Notice whether you feel relaxed or tense, quiet or distracted. Just noticing. Notice if there's any resistance or aversion, liking, disliking. Just noticing. All objects of awareness. Whether it's a sense of calm or a sense of agitation, they're both worthy objects of awareness. And then noticing that the mind is usually constantly moving between or arising one moment in a sound, the next moment in a physical sensation, a thought, was flickering. I'm just noticing where the awareness is, which sense door is your awareness at right now? Is it a sound or a sensation or a visual or a thought? It's always with one of them. There's always a predominant object of awareness. Even if it's not wanting things to be as they are. That also is an object of awareness. Just allowing the mind to go where it wants, noticing it, following it. And noticing the awareness as well, the awareness itself. As an object or experience of awareness and the awareness rising simultaneously in every moment. Often we're in the object rather than the awareness. If some movement or sound takes your attention, notice that. If you feel tired, notice that tiredness is happening. Nothing in experience is unworthy of awareness. There's always something happening. Which sense door has just arisen for you? Which sense door is consciousness and attention at? Noticing this constant arising of one sensation at any sense door after another. Constantly shifting and changing. Sensations, perceptions. Stories. Is there anything else other than sensations arising? And passing. wanting, not wanting. Just noticing the movement of attention from one object to the next, one sense door to the other. What is being known right now? Even if it's vague and unclear. That too can be known. Noticing which sense door is predominant, whether it's mental activity or visual or auditory or tactile. The mind slips seamlessly from one to another. Noticing the awareness arising in one sense door and then another, along with any discursive thinking that might be accompanying that. Any feelings, pleasant or unpleasant, neutral. Noticing. And gradually bringing that period to an end. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock almost, a minute away. And I think we've got the next session's at 8 o'clock, isn't it? So I didn't leave any time for any questions or observations, but we've got a minute, I think, 2 minutes. So we'll leave it there. Okay, see you all later.